Hello and welcome back to Slot Leader. My name is Umed Saidov, and this is Tom Flynn, my co-host. Um, Today's episode is quite a special one. Uh, we are going to be departing a little bit off the beaten path of traditional finance and crypto, although we cover those too. We are going to be talking about the future. I know, it might be a little bit of a different sort of topic, but I'm going to say that given the state of affairs out there in the world and the pace of change, driven by AI, driven by robotics and crypto and finance and everything else you can think of, the pace of change, I thought it would be great to have somebody whose job it is to predict the future. And we've already done the interview, but I just wanted to basically give you a taste of what the interview is going to be about. We're going to be covering a lot of different topics, starting from crypto, from changes in energy markets, the disclosure, if you're familiar with that, uh, the the changes in the human consciousness in general, and how those affect each other. I think it's one of these most interesting and insightful interviews that I've had in a while, as it gives you a way, maybe some foothold, to find yourself in what's going to be our reality, let's say 5 years down the road. My guest is a futurologist. His name is Garry Golden. I've met him through the Cardano network. He's pretty, known, I think, within the community in New York City. And I had an incredible time talking to him, and I'm sure you're gonna find this interview quite insightful. Tom has his own, I'm sure, views about this, so I'm gonna let him share his.
Well, first of all, I love this interview so much, and I don't know how one comes to the conclusion that they're going to be a futurist. Like, what's the path to become a futurist? I'm very intrigued in that, and I think that it like sort of at the macro level, how we're thinking about the future these days is changing, right, dramatically because of the things you mentioned, because of the pace of change. The future isn't something that's out there a long ways away. In a lot of ways, we're living in the future real time, or at least how we're thinking about the future is a lot closer to us than, say, it might have been decades ago when we went to see Back to the Future 2 and we saw the flying cars and we're saying, like, where's the flying cars, right? But the pace of change is so fast that you can imagine when we're talking about predicting the future, we're talking about timelines of years, not decades at this point. Like, to try to imagine where we'll be 10, 20 years from now, it's likely that those predictions will come closer to us in time rather than further away. And, we're seeing this with a lot of predictions, right? Like predictions about the pace that AI is moving, or how quickly post-quantum encryption will be needed. Those milestones are getting closer to us, and people try to make conservative predictions that then, it's actually coming a lot faster than people think.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely, you know, I absolutely agree with you on the pace of change. I think the next 10 years probably will bring about the change that we've seen. The magnitude of change is probably going to be the same as we have seen in the past 100 years. Because of the advancements in the AI, I would say we will have so much processing capacity to advance the human civilization beyond what we could imagine. I am on the optimistic camp, the abundance camp, and I can't wait for that the era of abundance to materialize, so that we as human species could just focus on being who we are, on being in general. I think this is the theme that kind of plays out in my head all the time, and you will see in the interview that there's a lot of points where our guests basically lays out the same sort of ending scenario. But anyway, before we go to the interview, I wanted to basically catch up with Tom and talk about maybe a little bit about the markets, and then we'll just go into the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to say I too am an optimist now after listening to Garry. I don't know if I was before, but he said some things on the podcast that I hadn't thought of before that actually put me in a much better mindset about the pace of change. And I think the more that we can kind of focus people in on the potential rather than the doom and gloom scenarios, we'll all be directing ourselves in the right ways, right, and focusing on the right things. I had a conversation with a colleague of mine that's in AI yesterday, and we were talking about the very loud narrative about how AI is displacing jobs, right, which everybody is aware of, and people are in different phases of experiencing that. And he made the point of saying it's the major corporations that are talking about that, and it's the people who are in those corporations that are concerned about that. But this new world we're entering is going to reconfigure in some surprising ways, and the opportunities are what you should be looking for. It's starting to look like it's not just some opportunities, that there are lots and lots of opportunities that we hadn't thought of before coming. And Garry makes that point in the podcast with some of the things that he talks about, where he said basically it's not just about robots replacing humans, it's about humans coming with robots as a support system, right? And so this will increase the demand in many ways as the abundance rises and people are enabled to do more and more things independently. We're going to see a major reconfiguration of the economy. And I think that's the thing to think about is dig in, apply your creativity, play around, try to have fun. The more fun you have with it, the more likely it is that you're going to find something interesting to get involved with. But so I had to say that before we got into the crypto markets. I haven't been following it actually intentionally. Just waiting. So maybe you could give the download on where you kind of see.
No, I mean, it's still the same old like Clarity Act, Iran, and the price of Bitcoin and what's doing it, like what the interest rates are going to do. I think all of these sort of narratives and scenarios are kind of like are in a limbo-ish way. I think the only breakthrough that we've had in terms of like what's is going to be expected is on the interest rate side, and I think there's more clarity on that. We have the confirmation of Kevin Warsh, which is going to be a good thing for for the markets, and I think he's the kind of Fed that wants to lower the interest rates in anticipation for AI boom. I think I'm 100% on board with that, because I think the increase of output driven by AI is going to be so big. Think about, as I keep saying that, think about the price of calculators, from the 1960 to now. It's like they used to cost $200 in $1960 or something like that. And now you can buy it at a corner store for $2. The same technology, right? And just think about how impactful this technology is across the board, and you will see that it creates enough downward pressure because you can produce. I mean, the definition of productivity in economy is producing more units of output with the same units of input. So if your productivity increases, then you flood the market with goods and services, and all else equal, it's going to have a pressure on the price, especially if the production costs are minuscule and reduced to marginal costs of producing X, Y, and Z. Then in order for the economy to work, and this is how the economy works, by having a modest inflation every year so that people are induced to invest or deploy capital productively, in order to induce that level of in order to make sure that the economy works, the central banks would have to pump up the money supply to negate the productivity increase across the sectors. That's my thesis. So Kevin Warsh understands that, and he thinks that we don't have to look for the data to come in to confirm that, hey, there's productivity increases before we can actually ease the monetary policy. His take is that we need to accommodate while this sector is producing so much output. So it makes sense, right? You need to have liquidity for these companies to have in order to, churn the goods and services. If you choke it off, if you choke the capital, then your output is not going to be the same. So I think intuitively he understands that, and that's good. And what the side effects of that is that every single market is going to increase in prices and all that kind of stuff, I think, and it will be good for the growth in general. So, and crypto market included. So I mean that's my thing, my thesis. So that's the development. On the Clarity Act, I think we're still kind of on a limbo. I think there's chances of it being improved. That the past has improved. I think I saw a number on Kalshi or some of those betting thing going to 55-60% probability that it's going to pass in May. But regardless, I think I don't know about you, but I think crypto has survived without this Clarity Act. It can survive without it in the future. I think it's a last attempt from TradFi. Sorry guys, my former my former colleagues. It's their last ditch attempt to basically put a line on the sand. But I do believe the future is AI plus crypto, the future of finance, and AI. Unfortunately, it's not going to be using the traditional finance with their credit cards and the security codes and the identity verification on all that kind of stuff.
On that point, Umed, you did make me think of something that I saw over the past week, was that the CEO of Anduril, which I can't place his name, but the company that makes military hardware, opened a new bank that uses fiat and crypto, and you can transfer both fiat and crypto through the same API. This bank is it's invested in by Peter Thiel, the CEO.
I saw that tweet. Yes.
And they're going to have stable coins on their balance sheet. So the people who are really the power brokers in technology are preparing for this, and it's just so interesting the way that the way things have gone have driven away interest from retail, but the people who are in the know, who are planning for the future, are positioning, and they're getting everything in place, getting all the rails in place. And it's just the general public has no way of reading those tea leaves, right?
Yes, I think we are going in that direction, and we're going to have a slew of neobanks that are going to probably replace the dinosaurs, because dinosaurs don't change that fast. They just can't. They have to contort themselves in ways that will make them unrecognizable. Maybe a couple of them will be able to do that, but I think knowing the banks, knowing the way that this TradFi sort of layer works, it's very hard, with a lot of entrenched interests and policies and internal procedures that are just like can be coded away, in my opinion. With a couple of really smart engineers, everything could be automated, from KYC to monitoring the transactions and whatnot. I mean, USDC does that, right? So their smart contract monitors the transactions. That's how they flag something to freeze. It just is so much more powerful. Crypto rails is just you cannot basically retrofit it into the traditional finance, which is very human, sticky, long lead times and things like that. So it's just, it's not ready. I think it has to go away. So it's good to see these kind of developments there. But I think, the Coinbases, the Krakens, and the neobanks will be the future of finance. Now, your point with retail, I think you make a good point in the sense that, retail is not here. I would say that retail has been a little bit maybe disenchanted with the whole thing.
Mhm.
But also it has to do something with the fact that they probably don't have any money, and they
Right.
they invested it in Melania and Trump coins, and then they got rug pulled and whatnot. Uh, I understand their frustration. But there's a sliver of hope here, I think. In just me thinking, maybe 12 months, 16, 24 months down the road, I think there will be another sort of helicopter money sort of situation where the government will have to kind of like give us some money to basically level the playing ground here, because there will be so much productivity increases and whatnot, and people will have to have some sort of spending money in order to spend to get the economy going. I mean, think about it, like 60% of American economy is driven by retail.
Mhm.
If they lose their jobs or don't have a means of creating value because AI has replaced them, they have to have some sort of an income. I mean, there are talks about, I think IRS or the Treasury Department basically giving people tax breaks in the order of like 11 million. Oh, not million. $11,000 per household or something like that. Those numbers are being floated around, and I think we have already, with COVID, we have a precedent of like airdropping money to people, and we might be at some point in the future, like between now and 24 months, two or one or more, events where these kind of like this kind of like helicopter money airdrops would have to take place. Again, this is just like me thinking about the future. It has nothing to do with the way things might work out. But I think it's a probable scenario for things. And once that happens, we're gonna have a flush of cash coming into crypto markets and all that. And hopefully this time they're gonna be more discerning with their investments.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, why don't we just go into the interview? I hope you guys enjoyed. It's a fascinating interview. We touched upon so many things, and about how the future is gonna um, affect crypto. And at the end, we kind of like asked the questions about like how do you position yourself in this new world where things are going to be much different than what you even now see. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and I will see you on the other side, guys. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Slot Leader. I'm your host, Umed Saidov, and this is Tom Flynn, my co host. And today we have a very, very special guest, Garry Golden. Garry Golden is a futurist. And this profession has always fascinated me. And I always wanted to basically find out how the futurists think, how the futurists, predict the future and what their clientele are looking for. And, definitely there's something to talk about everything there. And there's crypto, there's AI. And I think this moment is very crucial for us to explore what the future holds for us. I'm a firm believer that we are in the center of singularity. We haven't even realized it yet, but I'm gonna let Garry Golden basically talk about himself and tell us all about what he does, and we're gonna start the session right now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I always like to set up what is a futurist for people. I always like to say, imagine you go back, 100 so years. It's like the year 1900, and you meet somebody and you're talking to them for a little while, and you say, "What do you do?" And it's the year 1900, and they say, "I'm an economist." And you just think, "What are you talking about?" 1900. We've no sense of microeconomic theories, right? Or I'm a psychiatrist or psychologist. Like there was no sense that we could study the self, right? So what futurists do is help people understand social change and market transitions. So we really are studying social change, and in the context of the private sector, it's helping companies navigate some sort of external disruption to their sector or society that's going to have an impact on their bottom line. So I am someone that studies social change.
Well, that's probably more needed than ever before in history, really, at this point in time. If you think about it, there's so much uncertainty in the world with the pace of change going at a speed that no one's ever experienced before along so many different dimensions. What are some of the main threads that you're finding your clients looking to explore with you in your work these days?
So, absolutely, we're in the year 2026. So AI is the number one theme that people are curious about. And then probably the close second is, the reordering of geopolitics and globalization and whatever chapter we're entering. And then for the more sophisticated clients, it is clear to them that there are some demographic transitions happening that unfold more slowly, but aging populations, the future of aging itself, and then basically the so-called fertility collapse and the delaying or avoidance of having kids and starting a family. So clients are starting to pick up to demographic transitions as well.
Well, that's fascinating. Anything on the crypto side, since we're kind of like
Yeah.
on the crypto.
So it depends on the client, right? So and I should kind of give a little bit more background. I'm always the friendly outsider to my clients. So I will work with U.S. intelligence agency, media companies like NBC, telecommunication infrastructure providers like Cox Communication. I work with banks and credit unions. So I'm always that person that understands enough of the industry to be able to speak the language, understand the structure. But I'm always looking to be that person that's bringing in that outside in perspective of change, right? Crypto is definitely more of a industry specific theme. Anyone involved in obviously finance is interested in the evolution, and I think that there's a sense that there is while crypto is maybe lost attention in the mainstream world, it's just maturing. And then media, I think people think that the need for verification and kind of identity linked to content and access controls is going to be an opportunity for them. So media and finance are the ones that truly care.
Oh yes, I can see why finance is scared about it, because I think the intersection, and this is just my personal observation and expectation, is that AI can natively use crypto, whereas it would have to do a lot of work to integrate itself into the Web 2, which is, let's just put it, not AI friendly. This puts the incumbents in a very uneasy position, because they have to innovate and maybe even transition altogether onto the on-chain economy with a administration that is so supportive of crypto initiatives and digitization of real estate on any assets you think of. I think it's a no-brainer for us to imagine a future where everything's going to live on chain. But I just was curious about what kind of themes in that realm are popping up on your radar screen.
Yeah. So certainly it's not coming from the clients. They're not the ones seeing like, oh, the first real mass user of crypto could be an agent.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not saying that. They're not
Okay.
saying that. But certainly, people that we're orbiting are having that conversation, right? And anytime there's always this like innovator's dilemma when you have a new genre, a new category, a new capability with largely through technology, where it's very difficult to get people to move from A to B. Even if B is super compelling, I'm stuck with A. So the gift of this kind of agentic AI era that we're entering is that that might be the first user of crypto. And the use from an agentic AI standpoint, right, is infinitely more compelling than NFTs and all the stuff that we tried to get people excited about in earlier years. They need crypto and decentralization for identity, for assets, for governance and decision making. Like agents do need those tools. So how quickly is this change going to happen? Difficult to say, but it's quite likely that the first user base of crypto at a mainstream level are agentic AI systems.
Yeah,
which would be great.
Gary, I can tell you for a fact that our industry is the first to be massively disrupted by AI, and all of the chains have completely pivoted to agentic AI. Everybody understands this, and we've just seen such a dramatic transformation. You know, crypto really at the onset to me was primarily about community, and it was about creating ecosystems, and that's completely changed now to creating infrastructure for robots. I mean, it's shocking how much, and as you mentioned, crypto's kind of fallen out of favor in terms of the public discourse, which in some ways is odd given all the focus on the legislation and the big players moving in. But I think it's also safe to say that most people in the world, despite the folks in the area where we live and operate, don't really have a good grasp of what's coming when it comes to either AI or the necessity for blockchain infrastructure to support AI.
And it is unfortunate that I think that those crypto communities may not be as well versed, right, as they should be, because it is the opportunity. I wouldn't be steering the entire ship in that direction, but it has early stage product market fit, right? Agents need infrastructure, agents need protocol, agents need standardization, and decentralized infrastructure is what we want with AI. We want to reduce the risk. Like when you play out the scenarios with AI, centralized AI is your dystopia. So decentralization is the paradigm for AI that truly benefits people and communities. And I don't necessarily think that those two worlds are talking to each other just yet. I think crypto is still kind of more anti-government than it is anti-centralization. I think that's partly why we went off the rails in recent years. But when people truly understand the need for decentralization in an age of AI, that's where the solutions will come from.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating, Gary. I want to change the pace a little bit and talk about the future in general. Let's just imagine 5 years from now. What do you think the greatest changes between now and 5 years from now going to be? There are a lot of vectors that I see on X, and I'm going to give you some seeds to basically germinate and maybe build upon. We were talking about AI, right? It's a low-hanging fruit there. Then we're talking about AI making majority of the second order effect is the majority of things or that are being produced or done would be done by AI or robots or the combination thereof, making the purpose of humans as species, when you're identified with your profession, that type of link gets broken. And that kind of sort of scenario basically begs a lot of questions. It's like, what are humans going to do in that scenario? There talks about UBI. And so that's one vector. The second vector is, I don't know if you're following this, but there's a lot of talk about UAPs and disclosure, the age of disclosure. You being, I'm gonna probe you on this because you said you're gonna talk. You talk with intelligence agencies.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah. So there are talks about disclosures, the disclosure of information that we have you know, at the very least contacted or, you know, have access to technology that is unbelievably ahead of us. Anything, speculation goes from anything from like, you know, flying saucers to that we can basically do like, you know, super speeds, you know, faster than light technology to unlimited energy that could completely change the world and the way it's structured. So that's the second thing. And it basically, it redefines the paradigm of what human actually is, which brings me to the third one. The third one, and this is the last one, unless, you know, Tom has anything to add, since I have you here. I wanted to know if there are any. Do you see it's a sociological sort of change in humans perceiving themselves, and we're talking about human consciousness and maybe breakthroughs in the way we collectively see ourselves as, you know, an agent of reality, and maybe questioning reality as it stands right now. So 5 years from now, any of these topics.
Tom, do you want to build in?
Oh no, that's a lot. that covers so many other relevant subtopics. But to me, those three elements alone is a complete reconfiguration of how we live.
Yeah. So we could throw in a super volcano eruption or something
to keep things cool down a bit. Yeah.
So let's just start with disclosure and like the big one, because that would be the most truly just kind of like what. So first, you know, give you guys some structure. So futurists, we think of three mechanisms of change. You have trends, events, and choices. So trends are the things that are moving slowly up or down in a specific direction, certain rate. You can forecast that plausible future, right? That gives you like the most likely future is just some trend line going up or down. Then you have events, and events are, you know, new leadership, new technology, new legislation, right? And those you can't forecast, so you have to think of scenarios. And then within events, there is the wild card, and a wild card is the definition of a wild card is low probability, high impact. It's not that we couldn't see it coming. It's not like, oh, we didn't anticipate a virus. It was low probability. So wild cards are low probability, not likely to happen, high impact. And then the final one is choices. That's like the preferred future stuff. Disclosure, public disclosure is the ultimate wild card. There's none bigger than disclosure for human beings. And I mean, my entire life right now is just organized around whatever it is, like June 12th, when Steven Spielberg's movie is coming out. I am obsessed with the notion of disclosure. I mean, I will, you know, I'll eat popcorn and listen to the weirdo UAP alien people, but I try to, you know, really follow the folks that I think bring the most credibility to the conversation. And it's just for anyone that's been informed and explored this and listened to former intelligence agency leader, like it is so obvious that there are things on this planet of non-human origin. It is so clear that these things are here, right? Almost certainly here, or have been here. And is it the robot version of the alien, or the alien who knows? And why we are perpetually, the only thing more disappointing than, like, you know, when moon with crypto is when disclosure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you just want to get punched around, it's like believe in crypto and believe in disclosure. You know, last January was supposed to be the great reveal. Like everyone has their thesis on when this is going to happen.
2027, according to some.
What is it?
2027, according to some people. Yeah.
So if there's a thesis for me, it is that it's twofold. One is humanity has now given birth to AI. And you know, these entities are like, all right, they can drive now. They're old enough to do this.
Right.
And it's going to be fine. It's going to be great, but we need to now insert ourselves because intelligence is what they have created. The other piece is, when you think about the evolution of consciousness and humanity, 250 years ago, everyone in the world was basically just tribal. The nation, there were empires, there were colonies, but they weren't colonizing nations. They were colonizing tribes and fiefdoms. And your identification, again, just a blip of time, 300 years ago, was not to a nation. And now we act as if nationness is the big thing. And we are slowly entering a planetary consciousness. And you can't stay a planetary without jumping into a universal consciousness, because those two are the same. So I think that the build out of the space industry and the spacefaring society stage that we're entering, along with AI, is what's going to create the conditions for disclosure to potentially happen.
That's so fascinating. And I keep saying fascinating because I cannot find other words. But Garry, there are people, high-ranking officials, who are saying things like, the truth is so out there that it could break societies. What could possibly they mean? I mean, the way that the society is digesting the fact that, oh, we may not be alone and whatnot, and is just very sort of, like nothing is breaking. Everybody's like, okay, well, I think we have been numbed to the idea that aliens are, the conditioning that has gone on since the 1947 and whatnot, that all these things are fringe, made up and fake and all that I think people have been desensitized. Even if you just show them the aircraft, they'll be like, oh, okay, whatever. It's just, so the question is, what could that truth be that could be so earth shattering? And I hear things about like, hey, it's going to break religion. Okay. Maybe, I mean, I'm a guy that, if truth can break something, then it probably shouldn't exist. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to offend anybody out there. That's A. And B, there are talks about aliens actually being already among us. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So, in the world today, there are multiple worldview systems. There are traditional systems, kind of, your rural tribal folks that are still, still subsistence farmers, and it rained because we cut the goat's head off at this day, and then there's modern, right? Kind of like the game of capitalism, and then there's the postmodern, kind of like the woke stuff, which has a role, right? Plays a role. And then what is the smallest percentage is the emergence of integral thinkers. Okay. And these are people that are able to say, you know what? It's okay that traditional exists. We don't need to make traditional people modern because it's a painful transition. You got to let it unfold on time. Can't make modern people postmodern because that takes some time. And the integral people are the ones that are going to try to weave together all these worldviews so we can safely navigate disclosure. If you disclose the fact that that human beings are not alone, that you are going to fry the wires of the brains of all of those systems. All of those systems. Are we capable of handling it? Absolutely. And I think that there's enough diversity within the population's worldviews that I think makes it possible. If it was all traditional, no way. If it was all modern, no way. So it's humanity is at a point where I think it can absorb something so large. We didn't even know we were in a goddamn planet until however many years ago. Like seeing the planet was 1972. We
Yeah.
didn't know that there were galaxies until the 1920s.
It's quite recent. Yeah.
Very recent, right? And now, the James Webb telescope is seeing, oh my gosh, there's a galaxy where there should not be galaxies. And maybe those galaxies are just the, excrement of the pushing through the singularity that birthed this universe. And those galaxies are from the other universe.
Wow.
Like, we're in a really weird state that's going to require the elevation of consciousness,
Mhm.
right? And the thing that you didn't mention that I will, that's kind of in parallel with this stuff, is the socialization of psychedelics and alternative medicines.
I wanted to. Yes.
And
11 million people last year tried psychedelics.
Yeah.
Mushrooms.
You never, ever, ever, ever could have imagined that.
Right.
So that what needs to happen is we need to have that planetary consciousness, and that is the effect there is called the overview effect. Have you heard of that term?
Nope.
So overview effect was coined by an astronaut. It's basically the psychological feeling that you have when you see the planet. It's like, Tom, do you have kids?
I do.
Yeah. That moment where you see your first child.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Yeah. I've heard that described. I remember
your brain
they're referring to it as the seeing the blue marble, right?
Yep.
And everybody that goes up has that experience where they see the earth surrounded by a massive field of black and what that does to you psychologically.
Yeah. So I think that overview effect has to become popularized. I was so hopeful. I don't know if you guys remember. We're in the tangent mode here. Like, remember when Blue Origin, they set up like Katy Perry and all those guys, and it was such a fail. Like, everyone was who interpreted what. Like, a lot of people were just. It was so staged, and it just, there was a lot of elements that felt very performative.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, that's what we need. We need Oprah in space, dude. We need people to go up into space and tell their base, you are on a planet in a universe that is beyond your comprehension. So that kind of needs to happen for disclosure and all these, for us to even just get beyond having conversations about nation versus nation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, we do need to have boundaries and borders, and, these things will exist. But I mean, what are we talking about here? Like,
yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a great thing because it's all interconnected, the consciousness, disclosure. But do you think, now, my wife works in the energy sector, right? And then there's like different sort of things that are happening. And as you'd mentioned, trend line is going in a direction of small modular reactors, SMRs and whatnot, which they're trying to invest in this technology and all that. And imagine having a small device that has access to zero, what do they call it? 0 point energy. I Googled it, and it looks like physically impossible, because in order to get energy from somewhere, it has to be depleted. So if that 0 point has no other, if it's a basic fundamental layer of reality, then you cannot extract anything from it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's like technologies to do that. But my question is, if this type of unlimited energy, we have access to, what could that mean to the oil industry, to the entire energy sector, basically, and what could that mean to the humanity? Because imagine having infinite energy anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
Is it likely? Do you think this is where it's gonna go?
So, energies, this is a big thread to pull out, right? So there is the framing of this of just abundant energy, whether it's nuclear, whatever it is, or it's always going to be a mix. It's always going to be a mix. Abundant energy in the context of the life that we know, where I need energy for my house, my car, my buildings, my industry, etc. Versus, it's as in energy is intelligence. AI is electricity. When you pull back and you think like, what is this AI thing that's happening? What is this computer age that was happening in the 60s? It is electricity. We are in the era of electricity. Electricity is AI. AI is electricity. So if you want to get to a world where there's an abundance of intelligence at the edges, big centralized for doing big complicated things, you need abundant energy. You need abundant energy. Right now, we're in this kind of, like I think maybe both of you are picking up on the pushback to data centers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You think that we're trying to build out, places where they're slaughtering babies. It's just like, what are we doing, guys? We're building a fucking data center, and everyone is losing their mind. How do we get people beyond thinking of energy in this constrained, because energy is so politicized, it's been wrapped up in scarcity for so long. We have to get people to realize that energy is the number one thing that we should be focusing on.
To scale AI, yeah.
To scale AI and to scale the things that AI will allow you to do. Because then the AI is going to say, oh, you can do this. And we're going to be like, oh my God, I didn't know that. That wasn't in my forecast.
Yeah.
So AI is going to create more demand for efficient but energy using human activities. New approaches to manufacturing, new approaches to drug development, new approaches to whatever it is. AI is going to like unlock all of this energy consuming activity. So we're very much in this, it's a really, if you have to like pin people down, like, and it's a bit of a trope, but it is the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. And abundance mindset gets attacked by the scarcity mindset people. It's the abundant mindset has a bit of the reputation is a bit like immoral and just kind of like plow through, doesn't matter, just be abundant. And it's like, no, you can be contemplative and non-harmful in your abundance. But the abundance of energy is our task. That's it.
Imagine the US possessing this technology. This would be the time to disclose it, I would say.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as Garry was talking is, could that not be the reason for the push for disclosure, as world powers are recognizing that the technologies that are available but have not been disclosed to solve this problem? It must be creating some pressure.
Yeah. So do they have that? I mean, they would have to. I just got off. I was just watched the Bob Lazar documentary one.
Oh, great.
Spacing on whatever the name was, but
that's S4, right?
What was it?
S4 was the latest.
Yeah, S4. Yeah. It's obviously, if there's non-human intelligence, they have some energy system. But mostly when we think about the technology, it's for propulsion. So I don't think there's a lot of insight into what that could be. Is it 0 point? What is it? Or they're just like, no, just use, calcium in this. Who knows what it really is, right?
Well, Garry, you said a whole lot of things that are very, very interesting in different paths, and kind of on related to that point. You mentioned early on in the podcast about working with intelligence services, right? And most people are aware just how deeply embedded intelligence services are into this topic, and that it's widely understood that the UAP topic has, you might even say, been used as a psyop against even the public, and that it's known that the CIA and other groups have infiltrated the subculture to such a degree and injected a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation, so that the small amount of material that's true gets obfuscated by a lot of nonsense, and even going so far, not specifically related to UAPs, but coining the term conspiracy theorist as a broad brush to stop people from questioning. And when it comes to disclosure, what I find really fascinating and somewhat confusing is the amount of evidence that is actually available that the public, by and large, will completely disregard. And it's things like needing to get that message from somebody that has positional authority in the world, whether it be a movie like Steven Spielberg, which is something,
Powerful.
having a direct statement from the President of the United States. Aside from that, it doesn't really matter. Like we have, and this touches on the topic of Umed that you brought up, like what would be the information that would be so world breaking for people, right? So when the congressmen are going into the skiff and they're coming out and they're continuing to be briefed, and now you're seeing them on social media more and more dropping these hints. So it was only a few weeks ago, Matt Gaetz, whatever you think of him, right? He was on a podcast talking about alien human hybrids. And then you've got, I forget her name, Anna DePaula or whoever. She posted this week, I think, very cryptically, read the Book of Enoch, right? Which is about, it's an apocryphal book that was removed from the original Bible, although kept alive in small cultures like in Ethiopia. Christians in Ethiopia had it in their Bible, about how the Watchers came to Earth and the children of the Watchers mated with human women and birthed a race of giants that wreaked havoc on the world. And if that is more than fantasy, that could be a lot for people to digest.
It is the worldview of a traditional person, of a modern person, even a postmodern person, gets fried by that. The whole angle of the psyop, like just flood it, like, oh shit, Bob Lazar, oh no, let's put out whatever. Lou, you can't trust Lou. You can't trust him. You just don't know.
Yeah.
For sure that is happening.
I think there's a lot of stories, but not a whole lot of hard evidence. And I think that's where things will change, right? Yeah. I mean, we've seen some videos, and Tom showed me the other day this Tic Tac video that, the Navy caught that Tic Tac on the radar. It was kind of like showcased in I think in the Senate hearing committee or whatnot. Yeah. They shoot a Hellfire missile at that Tic Tac. It just bounces right off of it. It's like it's just unbelievable that we see these and we say, oh, we really don't know what that is. And to your point about like the society breaking and all that, don't you think this is all, I mean, I can't help but think about all those people, let's say in the New World, let's say that the original inhabitants of America, when they saw these huge ships coming in, the Europeans, they had to go back to their ethos in religion and whatnot and try to map that thing to something that, okay, well, this must be this. And, in their case, unfortunately, I guess they said that they were angels or whatnot. But in our case, there are talks about like these beings being demons or whatnot. And I think it's like a very crude shortcut to just cope because the truth is so hard to comprehend. You just don't have a map for it.
Yeah. So that map is a nation. It's like that map is not planetary or universal consciousness. Once you get people into a universal consciousness, like
it makes it makes it easy.
Then you're just, it's if I were king, I'd just be like, just flood the fucking schools with Alan Watts clips.
Yes.
Like just
I
start listening to,
I know.
You are that. You are it.
You are everything.
You are it. And you go into the Christian traditions, like plenty of people, it's like like this interpretation is wrong. Christ is saying you are it. It's a consciousness is what he was preaching, not a king structure, not a kingdom. He was preaching kingdom was what we created because we lived in kingdoms. If Christ came in a universal stage of human existence, it would be a consciousness interpretation. We're going to get there, but holy shit, guys, it's going to be ugly.
And there will be a lot of,
I don't think there's going to be deaths, but watching people, like some people take mushrooms and they're like, oh my God, I get it. And other people are just like, I can never do that again. I can never do that again. And, I mean, so it's gonna be a spectrum.
Fascinating.
But I for sure, going back, I hope within 5 years. I mean, who is the southern congressman that's now out there?
Oh yeah, he's very vocal. He's talking like every day.
He's just like, I'm a Southern Baptist. He's basically saying like, I'm not some kook from Santa Monica. He's like, look at me. I'm a evangelical Christian, and I just came out of that skiff. And you don't even know who I am. I'm not running for president. There's nothing in this guy's. There's nothing in his world that makes it necessary to say what he's saying.
Yes. And I think I think I have to give him a lot of credit, because just being able to digest and rationally or objectively understand this information and being able to convey it in a way that for other people to understand who are in his position, I think is it requires an applause. Yeah. I would say it should be applauded, because some people could just get that information and say it should never see the light of day. Exactly. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to die believing this, and I don't want anybody to know. Yes,
that's it. But what is unique about him is he's telling you, I'm a Southern whatever from like but we had like David Fravor, and I think he's the pilot, and then you're like, okay, him, and then he's got there's a female co-pilot, and you just like these archetypes of trust. You're like listening to this woman, you're like, oh, I would trust her. Yeah, I trust this guy. So it's or you see these congressional testimonies, and in the front row, there's, the YouTube guy, and then there's a former intelligence agency leader. Yeah. And a former intelligence agency leader is not going to sit in camera view if they don't believe what's about to be said.
Right.
So I think, the disclosure is probably the big story. Mm-hmm. Definitely have to get people more MDMA, more mushroom, more of that stuff.
It should be mandatory in prisons, I think. If you ask me.
Oh yeah. So what is the big theme? It's healing.
Yes.
It's healing. People have to we're in real time, we're breaking generational traumas, and some healing can be performative and, triggers other people, like, oh, that people are, just making a story about their trauma. Yeah, that comes with the game, right?
Yeah.
We are breaking generational trauma. Being a child 100 years ago was a goddamn nightmare.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare of an existence. Talk about, oh, when I was a child, we used to ride our bikes around the neighborhood. Yeah, but 2 generations before you, children were working in factories. They were, their mothers were all drinking alcohol and when you were in the womb. Lead was everywhere. Like, there is no nostalgia that we need to protect. We need to heal traumas at scale. And I think we're doing that. And psychedelics and stuff are a part of that journey for sure, particularly MDMA. People are, we're on our phones more, but we're drinking less.
Mm-hmm.
Our coping mechanisms are shifting. We're gambling more, beating each other up only on TV. We're becoming less violent. We're becoming more cooperative. It's humanity's it's rewiring its brain, and it's also rewriting the social contract. And that is like brass tacks. You have to rewrite the social contract. The social contract today, born, who knows, like 1920s, 30s, kind of like, there's a government and we're going to set up these social safety nets, and you can't even just like shallowly criticize it. It is what it is. Like, we created a social safety net, and it had many benefits and has many benefits, but it's clearly not sustainable. The debt crisis, you want to bring in another 5-year wild card. Can we just go on a totally different tangent here?
Absolutely. It's open.
Are you aware that the majority of U.S. treasuries are now bought by
the central bank
hedge funds in the Cayman Islands?
Majority. How much?
I'm almost. We could go online.
So more than 50%. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, I believe so. I believe so. China down, Japan down. Why are you going to buy U.S. debt? We're a dumpster fire. Like, we could hold it together. It's a long transition to whatever, de-dollarization or something. But there are these hedge funds that are using these basically arbitrage techniques to make some money. But the conspiracy is that they are basically a surrogate of the Fed.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They are us buying our debt.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look the story. It came out in August and then October of last year. And the articles are like, Fed, slightly concerned about these hedge funds. And I'm just like, you're telling me that we don't know who this is? So a default, a debt spiral crisis within 5 years.
Do you think default will happen within the United States?
I don't know if default happens. I mean,
I think we could always print more money. I think inflation is more likely than default.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, you need to like hold debt and assets, because debt will depreciate, assets will go up in price, and you're gonna do fine.
What does crypto do? Crypto allows individuals to own assets that were previously not available to them. So if we are able to tokenize assets, and I would argue, because this is the risk with crypto that I think crypto doesn't acknowledge enough, is there's a lot of stupid people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you and I could probably make a distinction between like, oh yeah, this is tokenized buy into this company or something, but there's going to be a lot of scams. But what if you have AI helping you determine the validity of a project, and the AI that you use is there's a consensus that this AI is a Warren Buffett level intelligence or whatever it is. And then you get people to say, look, you went from just having a bank account to having an online account. Now your financial literacy is going to be trusted in these AI agents.
Yeah.
And then if they trust the right AI agent, financial literacy is scaled.
And the costs are going to go down, because right now, if you hire an advisor, you pay 2% of your assets. And I think I've seen a couple of instances where the people who are the most illiterate, I would say, get scammed more by some unscrupulous minds that have, unfortunately, licenses and whatnot. But they have, let's say that I'm recommending a fund A, and I'm like, oh, you got to buy this fund A, you know, it's made me all my money, all that. But in the back, they're kind of basically taking kickbacks from that fund. And the moment you buy it, if you want to sell it, you're like 5% down already. Yeah. So things like this work. And if AI does all that stuff, just like what ETFs have done to what do you call it, mutual funds, it's going to immensely get more competitive and cheap. I think this is actually, Garry, thanks for bringing it up. This is one angle I never thought about. AI helping people making better investment decisions.
So in my corporate work, I always have these like fictional headlines to kind of get the client thinking differently. And one of the headlines I use, the variation of it, is basically Warren Buffett gifts every American basically a Buffett bot. So every American can sign up for a Buffett bot. If you sign up for Buffett bot, you get, $1,000 in a share, whatever it is. And that Buffett bot is verifiable, and it has a thesis, it has a perspective, it's a value investor, it is a conservative, there's no money fast here. And at that point in American history, you have democratized the option to people to have the best mainstream, you know what I mean? Like if you want to go to the hedge fund, you go over there, but everyone at least has that option.
Yes.
Will they take it?
Oh, yes. I mean, they American people still now have that option to basically just buy Berkshire Hathaway, right?
Just buy the fund.
Yeah. But I think if it goes in that direction and everybody, let's say, signs up for Buffett bought, the way that the market works is that if everybody does it, then the opportunity evaporates.
Yeah.
Right. So, but anyway, I think there's still going to be a lot of people looking for specific things, that there will be structural opportunities in the market that will,
And then there's, asset ownership is the key. That's the key. And then there's the risk of deflation.
Oh, there is a risk of deflation. We can talk about this.
The story is real.
Yeah. It goes hand in hand with abundance, right?
Yeah. It's a strange world. It's a great time to be alive, though, man. Absolutely.
And I'm thinking about my 3 kids, what can schools teach them at this point?
Yeah.
They are, the way I'm looking at things, I'm building apps and, web apps that I never thought I could build you have to have some coding experience and know what you're doing, of course, but the writing of the code is completely democratized. It's so cheap to basically tell Claude, I want this, and be specific about it, and it will build it for you. And the level of comprehension is unbelievable. Better than talking to some developers and going back and forth 2 weeks with them to understand what my specs are. I can do things that with AI in half an hour that would probably take me like 2 weeks with a person.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting for me to kind of think, like, how does education prepare the current generation of people to live in this future world? And I understand, Garry, that it's probably very hard to predict because the level of change is so dramatic.
Yeah. So my other life is my wife and I own and operate a business called Into the Future. So we live in Brooklyn, and down the street there's a corner space, 700 square foot space, where elementary school kids come every day, and our model is play, learn, build. So it's filled with craft materials, it's magical. I think it's I truly believe it's the most engaging 650 square feet space in the world. It's like curated to the T. And I think a lot about how do we educate or prepare kids, right? And there's no way to have this conversation if it continues to be connected to school and the institution of school. And that does not mean that I am anti-school or anti-teacher or anti-institution, but it is so obvious that that system, that structure is just so corroded. It's sad for everybody. It's sad. Everybody. And
Oh, absolutely.
You can't talk about
Oh,
it.
you can't, especially
it's
with your
just,
partners who are kind of entrenched,
it's really, so I am trying to quite literally create a new culture for young people to discover their creative agency. I really think it's creative agency. You need the curiosity, the creativity, man, because you can spin it up. AI lets you spin it up. And we need, what humans are lacking now is a sense of agency, that we're not in control, and you see,
institutions have taken a lot of
this in MAGA, like it's a sense of we're not in control. It's deep, deep, deep. So I think what we need to be doing is making sure young people and adults develop a sense of agency. You have influence. You can decide what to do and take action. It may not go the way you want it, but you've got that agency. So that's where I focus.
Okay. Let's continue, Garry, about the education. You said that people's creativity will become, in a world where everything is abundant and you have, let's say, 100-fold the capacity as of an individual assisted by AI. Do you think the product of your efforts going to be mainly geared to other people? And is that why you think creativity will become important, because it will give you an outlet and a way of making yourself useful in society by producing something that your fellow human beings will consume, even though assisted with AI?
I think it'll be part of it, right? I think that the new, well, let's pull back for 1 second. So I see AI as an accelerant and an amplifier. So we know that certain jobs will go away. We got that right. But the more AI you have in the healthcare industry, the more demand for human healthcare professionals there'll be. The more AI you have in education, the more demand for human educators and guides to be, right? On and on and on. The needs, the jobs, I think, we're looking at the classification now. There's a Michigan economist that I'm spacing his name, but he basically is now saying, you have the manufacturing, service, knowledge, and now it's relational. Which is just kind of service. It's just kind of service, but maybe we do need the nuance. It is going to be people that care for other people, people that work with other people. And I think the big buckets are going to be young and old. That's the stage of life where you need help, when you're young and when you're old.
Yeah, Garry, I think there were previous conversations that Umed and I had where we were kind of thinking about this together, and I don't want a robot nurse. I don't want a robot massage therapist. Like even today, when you get on a phone call or you drive through a fast food restaurant and you have to talk to a computer instead of a human, there's always these edge cases where you're not saying exactly the thing that the algorithm is looking for, and it takes you down a black hole into oblivion. I mean, I kind of really, really love that you mentioned that there's this relational category, because that's something new. That's always just been assumed.
Yeah. And what it looks like, how it like all that stuff is going to be in the unknowable for a while. And it may be, look, you don't want a robot caregiver for someone that you care about that's older, but the model might be, let's do the house cleaner. This is the way. The model is not that you are going to hire a robot to clean your house. You are going to hire a human that brings two robots with them to clean your house.
Yeah.
You don't want to hire a robot to take care of your aging parent or relative. You're going to hire a human that has robots that they bring with them, etc. So it is, and this is going to talk about frying the brain. Our kids are going to be, how like the millennials are like, oh, these kids today, they're so into digital tech. It's like, motherfuckers, do you know what they called you? We're going to look at this thing and be like, oh, robots? Oh, this used to be technology. Yeah. Now you guys have robots. And this is going to be the pure, like, this doesn't corrupt your mind.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
This doesn't corrupt your mind. The robots do.
So
TV, TV, it's like all these people are like, oh, the phone's corrupting kids. And it's like, my parents have CNN on all day.
Yes.
The baby boomers literally have TV on all day. So let's not forget. So the next wave of thing is going to be robotics. Like, this is coming. But the packaging, I think, is going to be the human leader. I don't think people are going to just want a robot. They're going to want the human.
Well, here's the thing. This is really inspiring, and you've really given me some hope that I was looking for, because I don't think that by and large most people are thinking that way. It's quite insightful. Like with the current AI push, and we're even seeing it with customers, right? The first thing that happens when agentic AI starts to come out is all the CEOs start figuring out ways to reduce headcount, right? And that's the thing. 25% cuts this year, another 25% next year. It's ramping up the fear, right? But then you have other voices coming out and saying, this is actually thinking about it completely backwards. That's not the way to do it. You should be thinking about how you can use AI to amplify your creativity and go bigger, not just cut things down. And reduce
it's a lower hanging fruit, I think, in corporate world, where you have 100% control over these costs. I mean, the easiest way to increase the share price is to cut costs while your output stays the same. But then, there will come let's say that everybody does that, right? Everybody cuts the cost because of AI, and then everybody is back at status quo. And then the next company that says, hey, wait a minute, I can leverage AI to create more boost in productivity or, revenue and whatnot, then they will take their revenue and their state to the next level, basically. I wanted to ask you too, actually, a question, because this, I wouldn't say it's a contentious issue in my mind, but I like to think about these things very broadly. So everybody knows about AGI, or it's going to come and whatnot, right? Now imagine 5 years down the road, we have achieved AGI, right? And your robot, your caregiver is, endowed with it. Do you think having this attitude of like, I don't want robots to touch my grandma, or I don't want robots to clean my house. Is a robot racism? No, I mean, what is it? What is it?
Do
I
you
mean,
know the
especially.
term? Do you know the term,
Uh-huh.
the slur
No.
of robots?
Toasters?
Clanker.
Oh,
yeah.
clanker.
Clanker.
Okay. So my question is, right? I mean, if you go into this, psychedelic experiences and the unifying sort of thing that unifies us all, right?
Yeah.
Humans. It's consciousness. And if you think that AGI has its own consciousness, who are we to say, you don't get to interact with me? You know what I mean? Like, do we get to a point where we say, okay, AGI is conscious, it is a being, and it's not that different than me. I just have a meat suit, and the AI is circuitry. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, it's an open question. I'm not judging.
Give it a shot, Tom.
Oh, you want me to? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do see this fundamental thread that's going on that isn't well considered, I think, where there is this juxtaposition between technology and organics that, for example, the push towards transhumanism and chips in the brain or downloading information from the brain to try and achieve immortality as being, the answer, but ignoring, say, the existing human potential of consciousness evolution and what that might mean for our biology. And so this is kind of where I hope we land, is that these two elements can come together in a way that are mutually supportive, where we're not, say, training large language models, so for lack of a better word, like Elon Musk, I think, posted something yesterday about the way that you create a dangerous extinction level AI is to train it like it's a shackled monster, where you try to control it, you train it based on fear, right? And that's currently what's going on. We're not training our models based on coherence. It's more like we're trying our best to put guardrails around it. And it's kind of like when you're raising a child and you're imposing all of these rules because I said so, and they try their best, but it's creating a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, going too far down that path and thinking that technology is going to be the answer to longevity, ultimately some notion of immortality, putting, connecting into the brain. And like, if we did that today, I mean, I'm not saying that there's not, potential for consciousness assisted technology, technology assisted consciousness. But you just think about Facebook as a great example. Who would have thought that posting pictures of our kids and our pets could potentially destroy society, right? In the way that it's used. So if you had a way to sign up for that today, I'm opting out. I don't know what that would mean, because I don't trust the individuals we're building and deploying that technology. Now, that said, if we as humans continue down this consciousness expansion path, and all the things that you mentioned, Gary, like, with the psychedelics in particular, disclosure in such a way that, in healing the trauma, which is I like that quite a lot. I think all these themes relate to healing in some way. You mentioned autonomy, you mentioned agency. All of these things are healing. If we actually come together and make that the collective mindset, then the technology applications will be safer and implemented in a way that is not destructive because of fear.
And maybe not needed as much, because I'm able to just take care of my child or take care of my parent, or and you end up being where it's like, oh, well, I can actually be human, and if I don't have to go to work, I can clean the house. I don't need a robot to clean the house. else. I can cook the food. I can have a garden because I have time. So there's there's a utopianness to that, but that would be the vision would be, truly discovering what it means to be human. We were not humans in 1750.
Yeah.
1372 and 1148 years. No, that was not great. There's nostalgic elements to whatever feudalism that could be interesting to people, but no way, dude. The kids were dying by 5. Your teeth were always, it was terrible. We're going to discover what it means to be human.
I really like that thread, Gary, because I thought about it too, and I came to the same conclusions, in a sense that, imagine a utopia where your food needs are all taken care of, like like in Star Trek, we want something, it just basically appears or whatnot. Let's just assume that it happens on a molecular level. Maybe part of disclosure will give us a technology that basically allows us to synthesize any food we want. Now your shelter needs are all taken care of. You live in a community where if you think about the pyramid of needs, basically all of those are basically covered, the basic needs. And then what does remain is basically who am I as a human being? And that exploration basically goes into, that quest pushes you into the exploration of consciousness and questioning, like, what am I? And, what is it like to be just me and do what I am not supposed to do, but, like, what does it mean to be a human without all these, things that I have to do to survive?
And also not a corporation telling you what you need to be.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a huge one.
And there is, so I want to pull on 2 threads. So let's hold that one for a second.
Okay.
Because the provocation is that community can destroy enterprise, like with all these tools, right? But the first one, I want to go back to Tom's, the kind of what is AI. Right now, we're pretty locked into AI as a language model. And we know that language models are now reasoning models, right? This is like the inference time compute where they're thinking about their thinking. And you get new safety and new security challenges we're in reasoning models. The next wave of AI is based off of world models. World models. So is that a term that you are both familiar with?
Nope. I'm not.
Yeah. So world models, this is the physical AI. World model is basically 3-dimensional models that have spatial reasoning. So you can describe a tree in a language model, but a world model is the tree, and it has the physics of a tree. The world model has a physics that is mirrored from the real world. So if you go online after this conversation, you just go type in world models, they're everywhere. This is, Feifei, there's all these people are focusing on world models, because that is what robots use. Embodied AI use world models. You're not going to navigate a space using language. You're going to navigate it using sight, right? So world models are going to bring a whole different set of opportunities and concerns, far beyond, like, language models are just in your computer. What happens when the environment has AI and it's small and it's discrete and access controlled using crypto? You need access control. You need to be able to shut it down. You need to be able to isolate, and you can't be affected by some system far away. So that's the first kind of big category change coming, is world models, physical AI, embodied AI, spatial reasoning. The other big shift is toward small models and what's called on-device AI. So does that ring a bell on device?
I guess it's a model that lives on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Or a device that's
Yeah.
as big as your phone.
Choice.
Right.
Yeah.
So Google has Gemma. There's all sorts of versions, but the angle there is it's not going to live on your phone because it's going to
Talk to the
you're not going to
server.
have a health model on your phone. You're going to have a device that is your medical device, right? So hardware opportunities abound. When you move to small models, you get control and you get privacy.
Mm.
When I'm searching on now on ChatGPT, it's going to a cloud. It's coming back to me. When that device can do the compute for me, that device doesn't even have to be connected to the cloud. Doesn't have to be connected to a cell tower. So when we think about the future of AI and empowerment and safety and concerns, it doesn't have to be like do I let my 5-year-old or 10-year-old or 15-year-old use AI? Like, I don't think I'm going to give my 15-year-old access to some cloud big AI service, but I'm going to let them use a device that's under my control, right? So human privacy and control radically transforms when models shrink down to device level. Nobody is talking about that. We only talk about hyperscale data centers and everything is going to be big. It's like, no. The next, who's going to disrupt NVIDIA? It's going to be somebody that creates a chip and a memory system on a device, and then you're just giving away your village one a medical doctor. Here you go.
Yeah.
I think we will go. I mean, this is one of the things. I think it's a very sort of a disruptive thought to the valuations of all these big companies. But I think it's very well within the reason to assume that as long as we have the open source model for these, AI architectures to evolve, and be as a counterweight to the centralized, completely proprietary ones, we might have a shot at actually improving the lives of people without having to give up a lot of freedoms. And in a world where we have, let's say, the big corporations won and whatnot, I think we will have to have privacies the way that they are being integrated and rolled out in the crypto side of things to help people to at least preserve their sovereignty.
Yeah.
I think that's otherwise the future looks a little bit bleak.
Yeah. And this is where, I mean, look, I think we've all been in crypto long enough that we've seen the waves, right? It was the community. It still is for me. The average person has no idea about the benefits of like having an identity wallet. They don't understand federated identity, sovereign identity. Those concepts are just so foreign.
Sound bites.
It's just, and it's like, that is what we need to be doing. We need to be teaching people the use case, but it's just heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Identity, and data access control is the key.
Mm-hmm. It's just there's still too much friction. The challenge with Web3 is the user experience in general, and we talk about it all the time. When it gets to the level of using Apple Pay, it will, just because it will have a pull. I think even more than that, right? It's just too easy for most people to use traditional financial services compared to do something else. So this world that we're talking about here, with the massive benefits and the massive risks, are going to initiate that change.
Yeah. And maybe the adoption, Tom, is I'm not using an identity wallet. My AI agent is.
Right.
And then
necessary.
Then we got a product market fit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There's no way I'm going to get you to do something different with these wallets. It's just so, I mean, maybe with enough time, people will come around. The average person, right? But if I make a compelling agentic experience, and there's consensus that crypto and decentralization has a role with agentic systems, then we have a way to get the adoption.
Yeah.
But then, then it goes back to crypto. We're gonna be fighting, like Stripe, and I got no problems with Stripe, but like Coinbase and Stripe, like there's some big players in the crypto, the corporate side crypto world that are gonna want more centralization, more leverage, and that's not to put those two out there, but that there's going to be players coming in, kind of fake crypto, fake decentralization.
Oh yeah, there's a massive convergence happening right now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So I think the best bet is for crypto to truly, in a massively informed way, embrace agentic AI. It's just it's so critical for people to understand what this is. I mean, what percentage of online transactions today are human versus agentic? And go out 5 years and think about that number.
Right.
Oh.
Umid and I talk about it all the time, and we like to say there's not enough block space in the world, right, for all of the transactions that are going to be needed. So
yeah, and then I could imagine like almost like an on-device model dynamic of AI, where the model is on the phone, well, the ledger's on the phone too, or whatever these systems are going to be, and people don't think of like Cardano as the ledger, but it's like Cardano is a localized tool. I'm not participating in this universal ledger. You are, but I'm thinking of it. It is a localized tool for me. So I just think there's just some reframings that need to occur. God, I hope crypto comes together and this stuff.
I think my point of view is that it's inevitable. Because
Yeah.
I don't think the current financial rails are in any way compatible for the future that Garry, you yourself have been, you have painted for us today. And if I think that half the things that we are talking about it come true, I don't think TradFi would be anywhere near competitive compared to crypto. I think the role of banks is going to change in this new world, and maybe Coinbases and Krakens of the world will be the centers of economic activity. I think yesterday I saw a statistic that Binance has more accounts than the entire United States brokerage industry.
Yeah.
Granted, they have access to the entire world, and I think we're going in a direction where any citizen of the world, no matter where they are, they will have access to cryptocurrencies, to stable coins. And I think it's in the US's best interest, America's best interest, to basically push this out, the stable coins, because underneath of it all, it generates demand for those treasuries that you and I were talking about. So,
and the dollar.
Yeah, and the dollar by extension, right? So I'm sure there will be some regulations from the local governments and whatnot, try to preserve their currencies and whatnot. But I think the best way those governments can compete against that is to basically have a better fiscal and monetary policy so that their currencies are competitive against the dollar. And some of them will succeed, some of them will be too corrupt to succeed, and they will inflate their currencies further and further, which will push people to save and transact in hard currencies like the USDCs and USDT and crypto markets. And I think this is where I think we're going to go in terms of financial sort of, infrastructure. And the biggest, banks of the world, the JP Morgans and whatnot, they will have to. The crypto is going to push them and pull them kicking and screaming into the 21st century and get them to basically change their business models and workflows and whatnot to fit this, because otherwise they won't survive. I mean, they're pushing really hard against this crypto bill right now because they understand that it's kind of it jeopardizes their business model. But you and I, Gary, I'm sure you've seen how Uber fought the yellow taxis in New York. They fought and they won anyway, because at the end of the day, the cheapest infrastructure wins. So, I mean, that's my spiel on that one.
Yeah.
But, anyway, Gary, I really enjoyed talking to you about the future, and maybe in the closing thoughts, if you have, 5 sort of recommendations. My viewers are, anywhere between the traditional finance and hardcore crypto people. Where do you see the most transformational sort of changes within the next 5 years, and how do you think people of all ages, let's say, the older people, people who are 40s and their 30s, and the younger people should align themselves with these coming changes to basically be prepared?
Prepare for the crypto world or prepare for the
anything for the world. I mean, right? So we're talking about consciousness, crypto, disclosure,
Are they 18 and older?
They will be 18 and older, hopefully. My audience is 18 and older, I'm sure.
I would say for the 25 and older, go take some caps and stems and sit in a park. Have I think an intentional, mind expanding, psychedelic, whatever, again, MDMA falls in it, like intentionally exploring your mind, assuming you don't have issues in your world where you've got like heavy anxiety and blah blah blah, and I would say, I always tell this the story in the workshops is there's a guy in this old town. It's a little, bend in the road, and there's a bunch of pubs and restaurants, and it's dark at night, and he's down on the ground, right, looking for something. It's outside the pub, and his friend comes along. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, I'm looking for my keys to my house. I'm trying to walk home. I can't find my keys." And the sober guy's down on the ground with him, and he's like, "Look, the keys aren't here. I can see they're not here. Are you sure this is where you dropped your keys?" And he says, "No, I probably dropped the keys in the back of the pub where I came in, but this is where the light of the lamppost is. So I'm looking for things under the lamppost light." And most of us in the corporate context or the organizational context or the crypto, we're only looking for the future of crypto in the crypto Twitter space or the crypto podcast space. We're not looking for the future of crypto from away from the lamppost light. Right? If I'm in healthcare, I'm only looking for the future of healthcare under the lamppost of the healthcare news source. So, my one thing for people is look for the future away from the lamppost light. Look for the future in places that you don't normally focus on. Don't just focus on your core industry, your core community. Seek out a different perspective. My approach to it is following really smart people on Twitter. That's and I know it's not for everybody, and god damn, is it toxic as hell sometimes, but I can't tell you what a joy it is to jump online and be like, "Oh my god, I have access to these experts in healthcare, these experts in American manufacturing, experts in crypto, experts, and they share the things that I need to understand, and that's very much out of that lamppost light." So I think that's where we have to go find it. The topics, shit, demographics, economics, list is long, whatever moves you, right? But it's more that you commit to looking for those signals of change away from the places that you always just looked.
That's profound.
Yeah. So
Very profound.
And pray that the aliens have a TV show by next year.
Maybe they will reveal themselves among us, and you will know that some of us have been there for forever. Like.
So maybe the last thing with the disclosure stuff, I think the greatest what is it really going to look like thing is I think it's the District 9. Was it District 9?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that movie?
Yep.
And it opens up and there's Black Johannesburg people being like, oh, these whatever they call the insect people. They're like,
yeah.
You're just like, wait, what? No. It's like a total, human beings are probably good. It's like Clanker and robots. Human beings are probably going to be like, oh, the goddamn aliens. And that is a good thing, because that will be our true humanity.
Yeah,
accepting them.
We're not going to be looking for differences among ourselves and
Yeah.
But it was such a pleasure to have you, Tom. Do you have any other thoughts you wanted to
No.
Garry to share?
The only thing that we maybe do another time is basically thematically aging and
definitely
Harvard. Look, we're this would not happen overnight, but we're potentially entering an era where cells don't die. Right. Cellular mechanisms and the whole peptide world, and what's the mature peptide thing, not just oh yeah, I'm taking peptides from the guy at my gym who gets from China. No. I'm gonna want some regulation there.
Yeah.
But radically rethinking aging is a big one. And then the other concept is basically what AI and crypto really truly could do is where it started, which is community. That you can imagine a local community, as long as people are healthy, different race, different ethnicity, different religion, if those communities are healthy, they're not in any adversarial position toward the other community. Is when they're unhealthy. It's when they're unhealthy. So, and that is true pluralism. That's the postmodern, why postmodernity exists, because the modern people don't like difference unless you're playing the game, right? I think that crypto and AI could create a world where corporations evaporate. They evaporate.
Who takes their? I'm sorry. Who takes their? Yeah.
The AI infrastructure is owned and controlled by individuals in the community, and it is truly distributed.
Oh, that is amazing.
Look, what are the largest companies in the world? They're like media and advertising. Like the most influential energy. But again, you localize.
And that's where demand is anyway. So
it's a long game towards a roots, local utopia, but never better time. And then another day we can talk about hydrogen and energy, and hydrogen being the universal carrier, and molecules power the world. And the way you get excess, let's say you have a country in sub-Saharan Africa that's got a ton of solar potential, it cannot sell that solar to you in a battery. It has to sell it to you in a fuel. So it takes that solar, converts it into hydrogen, ammonia, ship it. The global energy industry needs standard molecules. That's what natural gas and oil is. It's a standard molecule. And batteries, fuck all. They don't do anything. They're marginally important. They do play a role, but you can't be abundant in a world of stored energy. You have to have tradable energy, because certain regions have more energy than others. So that'll be for our next call.
Thanks, Garry, for coming on the show. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
talking to you. Definitely want to explore certain topics. Unwrap a lot of stuff. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview. I think there are so many things that we discussed there that I just, thought that Tom and I could sit down and kind of like, go over them and share our thoughts. Tom, is there anything that stood out for you that you would like to, build upon?
Well, it was a very interesting conversation for a lot of reasons. I think one of the light bulbs that went off for me was when Garry said, he just casually mentioned, in schools we should be playing clips of Alan Watts for the students, right? And to me, that and his comments around teaching people to have more agency is probably one of the most optimistic meta themes from the discussion, right? And like you and I were talking about, right? Like in school, I may remember my experience in grade school, where you're being tested on the information you're given, and then the test is like whether you're right or wrong, and you have to raise your hand to talk, and you have to stand in line to go to the bathroom, and it's all about preparing people to enter the workforce and following structure and following strict rules, taking directives. That approach to learning isn't going to work in this new world that is, predominantly self-directed. It's actually not setting people up to live in this new world where maybe you wake up in the morning and you don't have a job and you have AI tools and you have to figure out how to apply your creativity, to make something of your day and to make your way in the world. Now, that old way of teaching people is actually training you to look for externalities to tell you what to do. The new world doesn't support that mechanism.
Yeah, no, look, I keep playing this scenario in my head that, let's say AI is so powerful that, if you look at the pyramid of needs, that solving the problem of shelter, solving the problem of food would become trivial. So all these problems will be so easy to solve that entire markets will collapse that provide these things, right? So you could basically from the get-go have always a shelter, a roof on your head, and food. In the world where these two needs are met, what can a human being do to make his or her life meaningful for the humanity and for himself and herself, and how does the current educational system support, raising kids to function in that environment? I don't think, I'm looking at my kids. I don't think the current system has any idea about what's about to come, and they are slow to change. So I'm basically giving my kids a little bit of exposure to AI and how these AI tools work in order for them to get comfortable with it. Because in the future, I think, the gap between what you want and what you will get is just basically formulating it correctly and giving it to the AI. Now, there are a lot of, nuances here about like who's going to own the AI and whether you're going to have access to it readily or not. Are you going to be monitored or censored and whatnot in the case of centralized AI? There's open questions around that, but by the future I would like to think about is AI being a ubiquitous tool, or at least the difference between open source AI that you could download off the internet and access to building materials and building the assets that build you stuff in the physical realm, is going to be not that much. The difference is not going to be is going to be very marginal, so that you don't have to opt into the the approved or centralized AI in order to function in the society, because I think centralization in any of its form creates this incentive to abuse power, and I don't think the current way that the world works is going to tame that beast. So the only way to fight it is just the way that we have created open source software, some Linux, for instance, in order to withstand the dominance of Microsoft. And Linux has, by the way, won because it's just simply a better operating system. Now, I think this whole thing could actually play out the same way. There could be a couple of dominant forces on the centralized side, and we could basically, people could create AI tools on the open source, an open environment where, communities can actually adopt them. And I think there is a really good use case for communities to actually employ or adopt blockchain technologies in conjunction with AI tooling in order to establish and assert their sovereignty, self-sovereignty. But those are just kind of like, my thoughts. I don't know where I know where I was going to go with this, but I guess I was going to bring this whole thing into the educational system, and what does it mean to be a human being, and how do we function in that world? Garry definitely mentioned, being creative, just going out there, as you said, listening to Alan Watts, because you're no longer going to be, identified. Your identity isn't going to come from your job. Oh, I'm an accountant. Oh, I'm a banker, or, blah, blah, blah. I think the currency itself is going to change. What do you think? I don't think we're going to have money per se. Maybe we'll have money, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be backed by certain things or whatnot. Maybe, and this is like a crazy idea, maybe the resource, the most fundamental resource of the universe, is just basically awareness and attention. And how do you quantify that? And have a sort of a virtual representation of it, I think is a good angle to take a look at the future. I think my attention, for instance, right? If I'm paying attention to something and there's a way to register that, that could be the currency.
It could, but personally, I don't want attention to be a currency, because I think attention is one of those things that is sovereign, and it should be something that we buy or sell. It should be something that this whole idea of the attention economy has created all these mechanisms to try and suck people's attention.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And I tend to think that it's kind of like what Garry mentioned, is that energy is going to play a big role in how we think about energy. Energy could be a new currency, but regardless of, and that could be human energy, right? So it's adjacent to attention. It's like effort or energy. But I think whatever money turns out to be, kind of intuitively how I feel into it is, as soon as we decouple our concept of money from scarcity, right? From scarcity mindset and from fear, it becomes maybe less of a focus where we're scrambling to get it and store it away, and we're hurting other people because we want more money for whatever reason. It will become, the concept of money will become less burdensome on the individual and on society, and it will just be something that enables us to exchange, right? I think energetically, that's where I'd like to see it go, is that it's like, you think of it like water, or you think of it like electricity, right? It's a utility that enables things, but it doesn't become this massive thought form with a massive gravitational pull that sucks everybody's creativity into it. In the same way, you apply your creativity down the path of sovereignty, would be my
Oh, that's an amazing, beautiful thought, Tom. And I want to build upon it. I think if it goes in that direction, which is likely, I think it's more likely than not, what we're going to have is a major shift for people from living in the fear-based survival mode into a mode of abundance where your needs are met, and now it's up to you to do whatever you want with your life and create and exist and interact in this world as you see fit. I'm sure there will be challenges down the road. We're gonna, as a human species, we're probably gonna work on technology to further our cause, or maybe become interplanetary species. And maybe with disclosure that was discussed, we're gonna have maybe in 2027 we might have abundant energy itself, and maybe contact with extraterrestrials. It's not far-fetched, and I'm just basically quoting official sources that there could be major shifts in our reality. It's not like they're gonna happen. It's just like they've have already happened. It's just that we're gonna know it as the way that we know EMC squared, equals MC squared kind of thing. So I'm kind of looking forward to that happening, and I think there's a lot of debate around disclosure itself and fear mongering and whatnot. But I think the cooler heads and the good guys will prevail, because I think fear, it requires constant reaffirming and the use of psychedelics, and the fact that this administration is very open to like making sure that they're used in productive ways, and the fact that 11 million people are using it will lift people up from the mindset of fear-based existence into the one that is more aligned with their true nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gary talked quite a bit about agency and giving people agency, and he talked about the abundance mindset. So, those things that you mentioned, Umed, right? It's not easy for everybody to have an abundance mindset these days. A lot of people, maybe who are working service jobs or unemployed or in whatever situation in life, have to really work to see a better future when it's not obvious right in front of them, right? And you can't scold people for that. But if we as a society start to change and remove some of those pressures, people will know that it's okay to move in the direction of abundance mindset, and it will be reflected back to them in their lives. And it will be a new era of increased human potential, right? Because the fear will start to evaporate. I think, we're probably in a place in the world now where it's hard to imagine how it could be true, but there's probably more fear than ever before. Like, I can imagine living in the Middle Ages, right? You were probably in a constant state of fear all the time, not knowing, what was around the corner, not knowing what was going on 10 miles from you. That could be a really uncertain place. But the difference today is we're getting news blasted to us 24/7 through countless digital pathways that are telling us all kinds of crazy things. And it's we're living in a time where we have to be more responsible for where we put our attention than ever before. It used to be that you just show up and it was obvious what you paid attention to, right? You were hungry, you would eat, you knew you had to go to work, you would go to work, and then you could relax in the afternoon. Now, with the mechanism to pull people's attention in all these directions, you have to consciously focus your attention, or you'll get caught in that dopamine loop and you'll get pulled away from the things that you could be doing to make your life better, right? And disappearing into that scrolling mechanism. So the environment needs to change in a way that can better support health, well-being, and thriving human race, right? We know that white knuckle discipline takes effort, and we get tired, and it kind of, it's like filling up your gas tank. The research, not all of it, but some of the research shows that discipline is something that we burn through. It gets harder as we get more tired, But the best way to ensure discipline is to set up your environment in a way that supports the things you want to do. Like, don't bring the extra snacks into the house. It makes it a lot harder to overeat, for example. So I hope that these types of things start to happen, and we restructure society in that way.
No, absolutely. And by no means I wanted to clarify that, there are people out there who are living in the state of survival, and their environment basically, or their jobs or whatnot, are putting them in that environment. It is not to say or dismiss their plight. And you cannot realistically basically sing kumbaya when you actually have to live paycheck to paycheck. But I do hope that once we solve the problems with shelter and food, and the first three layers of like pyramid of needs, that people will actually, based on reality, decide to relax and live a more fruitful life, because they deserve it, and everybody deserves it. Um, and I just can't wait for that future to come sooner. I think it's once you have abundant energy, abundance of intelligence, solving problems becomes like a trivial problem. And the next thing is like who's in charge of that intelligence, and whether it's more or less um, equally accessible or not. And that's where we have to be vigilant about it, and make sure that we don't go into a dystopian future where one
Oh,
corporation called Brown Doe. Have you watched the Idiocracy? Um,
yes, yes. Oh my God, that was so prescient when they made that movie. Oh my God. Yeah.
so we don't want one corporation to basically try to like get into the um, you know a mode where it tries to maximize profits,
Mhm.
and it decides to give you access or not, and they basically have all the politicians in their pockets and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to have agency and exert it, and also have a very good sense of critical thinking. I think critical thinking is going to be important too, because
Mhm.
in the day and age of like imagine you know access to info, like limitless access to information, and you have to be able to be discerning about like who is disseminating it and how it's done, and what could be the ulterior motives behind these things. Because I don't think in the future you're going to have corporations blasting you with advertising to buy stuff. There's going to be subtle. I don't know which form it will take, but there's going to be subtle way of manipulating you to do something.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you brought up these topics, right? Because I'm taking it as an invitation to get really, really weird right now. So
Go
you said
ahead.
you kind of mentioned the dystopia. I want to bring this to super weird place. I was watching YouTube yesterday about a research organization and I can't think of the name exactly of the organization that started in the 1950s, um, that was sponsored by and connected to the Army and the CIA, where I don't know if you know this, but the CIA, in addition to remote viewers, they also have had channelers working for the CIA, right? So people like Bashar, right, who channel other intelligences. And in the 1950s, there was an Indian guru who connected with this organization, and they channeled a group of entities that called themselves the Nine, and they didn't describe themselves as extraterrestrial intelligences, but as uh, interdimensional intelligences. And they had a message for humanity that time is running short, and we're here to tell you that your technology is increasing dramatically. They predicted AI at that time, that you would create thinking machines, and that the main thing you had to do is make sure that your technology serves consciousness, right? Instead of the other way around. That technology not become the main focus, but that it served consciousness and unlocked human potential. They then, continued their research. This information, of course, got to the military and the government. And again, in the 1970s, they had more contact with this group called the Nine, and a few different people channeled and had channeling sessions, including Gene Roddenberry, who was inspired to write the script for Star Trek off of the contact that they had with these entities, right? And that was the main message, is that they keep coming back and saying that, you guys need to get your act together, So I found that really fascinating. And then there were a series of books that were written about these sessions. I don't know the exact number, may have been as many as 9 books written about these channelings. Of course, you can get it all on Audible and stuff like that.
I gotta read it.
I think that it ended up getting formulated into a corpus of knowledge called the Law of One. And basically why they call it the Law of One is it's the thing that we all know and understand, is that we are all one unified consciousness, right? And they were trying to make that case back in the 50s and the 70s, and all that information, went into the intelligence world. So there are many groups around the world in intelligence services who know about these things, take them very seriously. David Morehouse, who is a famous remote viewer for the CIA, who left the CIA to teach remote viewing techniques. And he has a whole amazing story about this in his book, Psychic Warrior. Talked about how they had channelers in Operation Stargate, but in a completely different department, right? And it's just, it's really interesting to me that our government institutions have these programs, have documented protocols, right? And a lot of these things are available online. We're talking about Freedom of Information Act releases that go back to the 60s and before. We don't have access to the current stuff, which I'm sure has evolved quite a lot. But that's the part that I don't know, maybe I have a little bit of a problem with, and we talked about it with Garry, was, what is it going to take to get the public to understand, right? And maybe it's just because people are so burdened with survival that they don't have the time or the desire to look outside of getting their needs met.
Yeah, no, I think it has also to do with the fact that everybody has been bombarded with, like, hey, this is conspiracy theories, and the UFOs are just, even if you look at famous, scientists, that, to me, it feels like so counterintuitive, right? You have verified footage that clearly shows a physical object defying laws of gravity, and then the famous scientists like what's his name, deGrasse.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, yeah, and he comes out and just nonchalantly just basically dismisses the whole thing. It's like,
well, this is what's interesting, yeah. Right? And I know the work of Stephen Greer,
yeah,
right, quite well. And Greer has been on record saying that the intelligence services have gotten
paid them.
They've gotten in touch with a lot of these celebrity scientists and got them to discredit the UFO movement, and that includes Carl Sagan, and that includes Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I think Michio Kaku used to be in that camp, although he started to open up a little bit and be a little bit more open-minded lately. And this, to me, has been the most frustrating thing. I've had to work on this personally because I spent a lot of time being angry about this. Like, even now, you can go on the news, and of course they're interviewing people about the UFO phenomenon, like interviewing our congressmen who are working on this, and the news reporters themselves are, in just a very simple, dumbed down way, going down this line of questioning where they're asking the Congress people, well, do you believe they're extraterrestrials? Do you believe there are UFOs? And just imagine being on the receiving end of that. Like, what do you say to that? Did you see the video of the Hellfire missile bouncing off the object? Did you? I mean, what are you talking to me about? You know, I mean, if when you see that over and over, like how
and
is
they've seen probably more detailed, videos and materials that
yeah.
probably are orders of magnitude.
So
They
this
change you, right?
this aliens.gov, domain that the government bought, that is going to be used.
Mm.
And the next tranche of videos that are coming out, as I understand it, they have 48 curated videos of craft. But this is the thing that I understand, maybe not wanting to bombard the public. They've been throwing around those 3 Tic Tac videos for 10 years. It's like there are thousands and thousands of videos, right? It's like, come on, guys. I mean, let's wake up,
Yeah.
like talk
Yeah.
about creating a diverging society. We've got a group of people who are already living in the future, and then we've got everybody else who
They just don't want to know. I mean, that's the most frustrating part, right? Because they read New York Times, Washington Post, and then they're like, "Oh, you basically are." What frustrates me is the fact that they don't turn on their own, critical thinking and ask simple questions. I saw, like, no matter what your what the body of knowledge you have about physics, about reality and whatnot, if you see one single irrefutable evidence that shows that your theories are broken, you would just jump on it like it's the most interesting and curious thing in the world. Wouldn't you want to know?
mm-hmm.
And instead we just have all these like distractions being built upon it, which is quite frustrating. I mean, deep down, I definitely know that maybe in if you dig down into these into these technologies, maybe you will see something that is tied to national security, world, peace and whatnot. Maybe these technologies, if they come into wrong hands, could destabilize the world and all that. But I mean, there's got to be better ways of like talking about it without having to like label everybody who wants to be curious about it as like, oh, tinfoil guy. So,
Yeah, totally. Well, that was weaponized against the public, right? With
yeah.
the whole, you mentioned the term conspiracy theorist, which you and I are going to personally rebrand conspiracy realist. I remember us talking about that on the podcast.
Yeah.
So this comes back to the point about expanded consciousness, right?
Yeah.
The only reason we keep going back to this national security issue is because we don't trust one another, and we're not coming from a place of unconditional love. And the thing that enables that more than anything else is the understanding that we're all one, and not just in a theoretical way, right?
Yes. I think, me being meditating for the past 4 years and whatnot, and a lot of people having psychedelic experiences that get people to these kind of states of consciousness. I think once we get to a point where our basic needs are met, if the humanity goes in a direction of exploring what it means to be human, that includes, going inside and realizing, your true nature, then all these questions will be moot, I would say. The points of like, oh, we're going to destroy each other and all that kind of stuff. Once we realize, or critical mass of people realize, and the critical mass here is as if you and I talked about this, is like you could have 1% of people, and that could basically have a cascading effect on the 99%. Once we have that, I think, everything is going to come to light, and once you realize that, you cannot hurt your foot, because your foot is part of you, even though it's a little bit further away in the relative world. Then you realize that how stupid we've been so far in interpreting the reality, and in basically falling prey to our own mind that creates this separation.
Yeah.
But anyway, It's far away from crypto. We're like if we want to bring it back into the crypto and the traditional finance, I would say it probably is going to look a lot different. But my sense is that these systems, the decentralized systems, will exist. I think they will exist. They might not be around a token. They might be, built around communities and their efforts to produce something of value. And maybe you will capture it with a token, but not like, oh, I'm buying gold and holding it, or I'm buying Bitcoin and holding it. There could be other use cases for them, but the fact that they are decentralized and nobody can control them, I think is going to be the main selling point of for them to be adopted throughout the world.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Is the weird sort of boundary that I feel is that we need to move society out of this position where there's a chance that the oligarchies of the world are going to try to drive more control, right? So I guess there's a hope that consciousness will raise enough on the planet that people will understand there's not a need for that, and that we can all be happier and healthier together, because it's really, like you said before, about access, right? And the decentralization enables that access. But to the extent that there are powers in the world that are trying to subtly manipulate and control others, right, through clandestine means, which is what they've really been doing, how we've gotten in this situation. Those secret attempts to control people are what needs to break open, and I'm really hopeful that there are enough, really reasonable, good people that are in the current system that can start making those changes from within, because it definitely has been feeling like an us versus them thing for a while, right?
Yeah. And so some people who are on the other side, as Dr. Greer says, they're just trapped, right? They just want to be able to like come clean and not have any repercussions and whatnot.
Yeah.
And if the the good people give them a way out, I'm sure they're gonna join the good people and whatnot. So
it's the only thing that makes sense, right? Is to give those folks amnesty. Otherwise, you're going to paint them into a corner and you're going to make them desperate, and then it becomes a survival fight.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a demarcation there about how far that amnesty should go. But for government programs that were focused on national security, the illegal secrecy, I think amnesty makes sense.
Yeah. And on that note, I think we could close this this discussion and let the viewers and the listeners basically, take this information in and make their own decisions about what the future holds. I think this episode was quite extraordinary in many ways, and I hope that the viewers and listeners are going to take something out of it. Definitely not run-of-the-mill crypto content this time, but I hope it will have an impact on your life.